Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar this afternoon. Our webinar today is on effective web content, and I'd like to welcome you all. If most of you know, the Design and Crafts Council of Ireland have organised a series of webinars. They're happening every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 3 o'clock. And you can find the detail of these webinars on a schedule that we've up on our website. And we also have any frequently asked questions page on our website if any of you'd like to refer to that, if you have any issues, or if you want to contact a member of our team, we'd be happy to answer any queries you may have. I'd like to just point out there's a Q&A at the bottom of your screens and a chat bar as well. So later on after Jenna's presentation, we'll have a question and answer session. So if you'd like to type in any questions or queries you may have in the chat bar or the Q&A part, and Jenna will answer them later on. So I'd like to introduce you now to Jenna Crotty. Jenna has worked with us before on our Optimize program and has done some mentoring, so some of you may know her. So she's going to produce this webinar on effective web content this afternoon. So Jenna, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Hi everybody, and hi to anybody that I've met before. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background, a little bit about me. So I'm Jenna, and I've spent over 10 years working in content. I've worked on every kind of content from instructional to marketing to educational. Right now I'm the director of ContentWriter.ie, which is an agency that specializes in copywriting. And I'm also a content strategist at an agency in Bray called Zara Media Group. So in my past life, I was the content marketing manager for Europe at Dropbox. And I've also been on the international SEO team at Groupon. And through my agency work, I've worked with various insurance companies, ESB networks, Electric Ireland, Ordnance Survey, and lots of brands. So I've seen a lot of different do's and don'ts across the world of content. And through my work with the Design Council of Ireland and the local enterprise board, I've worked with approximately 30 brands that belong to Irish crafters and designers. So what I've decided to do is to actually take a look back through all of the brands that I've worked with and round up the most common pitfalls from my perspective, the things that have gone wrong, and to share them with you so you can avoid them, or if you're doing them already, how to overcome them. I also just wanted to flag really quickly that the title of the webinar is actually on LinkedIn is Writing Effective Content, but the webinar that I've actually prepared is Effective Content. So sorry if there was a bit of a miscommunication. This webinar is not about writing skills, but it is about effective web content and the best practice for that. So just before I go into the 14 most common pitfalls that I have identified and how to overcome them, I just wanted to say, you know this already, but just to really hammer home the point that your online presence is now more important than ever before. Your customers are buying their gifts and their homewares and their clothes and their nice things online more than ever before. So your digital shop front has to be in top condition. Your customer's experience of your website needs to be seamless. So what I mean by this is that when somebody goes on your website, everything that they do, from navigating to getting to the cart to contacting you to getting information about deliveries and returns, that has to be as easy and as quick and as pleasant as possible. So what I really want you to take from this is putting your user experience first. So there are lots of things you can do to improve your website right now. These are very actionable takeaways that I'm going to give you, and what I'm encouraging you to do is, when you leave this webinar, to do one of them right now, do one of them today, and then write out a calendar for when you're going to do the rest of them throughout the year. So here are the most common website content pitfalls that I've come across. So number one, the journey to the cart is too complex. So I worked with an Irish jeweler whose beautiful jewellery was featured in the Oscars swag bag a few years ago. And the day after the Oscars, she had a huge surge in website traffic, and she had 80 something abandoned carts because the journey to get to the cart was just too complicated. So people said, oh, it's fine, I'll do this later, or I'm not bothered. And she lost all of that revenue opportunity. So I would say the number one thing that you should do is make sure the journey to cart is really, really easy, that they can get there in 3 clicks or less, that they don't have to scroll to click add to cart or go to cart, and that your page load speed is so fast that it doesn't take ages for the cart to load. The next pitfall that I've seen a lot, which surprised me actually, because this often happens with designers and crafters specifically, so people who really understand the value of design and visual identity are the very ones that are often having websites with very poor quality product imagery. So things like the product imagery is blurry, or they've got different lighting setups, or just it's just not professionally done. So I would say to you, if you are a crafter or designer and you've got something that is a visual product, make sure that your images are absolutely flawless. So get a professional to do them, and make sure that you have a visual identity. So if you Google visual identity style guide, have a look at what other brands are doing, and they will have a very defined look and feel to their images. You should define that for your brand and write it down, have it as a document, and make sure that your imagery sticks to that. So the next thing is the navigation is confusing. So one of the most common things that I see, this often happens with jewelry designers or fashion brands who are starting off. They'll have on their website across the top nav, home, about, contact, all of the stuff that you should have, and that's very good. But then they'll also have collections, and collections is fine. You should have this if that's what you want, but don't have it in isolation. You should also have shop or whatever it is that is bringing them to your products. So for example, I worked with a jewelry designer who had collections. So there was, say for example, it was Irish mist and, you know, forest walk or whatever the collection was called. But I said to them, what if I just want to buy gold earrings? What if I know I want to buy a gift for someone and I want to buy them gold earrings? There's no way for me to click shop, earrings, gold earrings. Like, I can't get there. I have to know that your Irish Mist collection has a set of gold earrings, and I have to know to go there. So design your navigation from a user's perspective, and make sure that your most highest revenue generating items, and all of your items, but prioritize the revenue generating ones, are really, really discoverable. The next thing is, I've seen a lot of websites that make people scroll too much to get to the good stuff. So if you haven't heard of the term above the fold, in the world of website design, above the fold means everything that you can see before you have to scroll. And this is the prime real estate of your website. So if you've got a very visual product, you should make sure that that person can see that product instantly when they land on the product page. So in the example of the gold earrings, when I go to the page, whether it's on mobile or on desktop, that I can see those earrings straight away. And the other thing is that the add to cart button is there above the fold as well, so I don't have to scroll to do that either. The next thing that I see a lot of is the absence of a call to action. So for anybody who doesn't know what a call to action is, a call to action is a term or a phrase or word that encourages the user to take an action. So it could be buy now or contact me. It's basically making somebody take an action. So your product pages will probably have a call to action, which is going to be add to cart. But sometimes I've seen in collections pages or about pages, people will tell you a wonderful story about who they are and where they get their inspiration. But once you read the about, then there's just nothing. So where do you want them to go next? Make sure you know where you want your user to go next on every single page of your website, and make it really easy for them to go there. If you don't know where to send a user, I would say prioritize sending them to somewhere that's going to be a revenue generating opportunity. So send them to your shop or send them to the cart. The next thing is only providing one image per product. So this is very simple, but it's very effective if you actually implement it. Make sure that you have more than one image for your products. So if you are selling gold earrings, I want to see those earrings in at least 3 different shots. Depending on your product, you might want to have just everything the same with the same white background, or you might want to have a combination of product only shots and then lifestyle shots. So a lifestyle shot is when your product is being shown in its use. So somebody is, you know, it's for example, maybe you make vases and the vase is placed in a styled room with flowers, or maybe you just want the vase with a white background. It's up to you, but make sure you've got more than one picture. I would say at least 3. So my background is a copywriter. That's how I started off. So for me, the first thing I'll always notice is if the copy is too short or too long, or if it's incorrect. So I've often seen pages that just have way too much copy. People will say, what is the golden rule for the volume of, or the number of words or characters that you should have on a page? I would say the answer is it depends on who you ask. So I'm going to give you my best practice from what I've discovered over my career. I would say that your homepage should have no more than 150 words, but I would actually even go 100 or less is the best. For your product descriptions, if you're a crafter or a designer specifically, I would say 50 words or less is absolutely fine. Really, you see pages with much longer product descriptions or homepages in heavily regulated industries like insurance or medicine. That's fine. You can get away with having a little bit more, little bit of a higher word count on an about page, for example, because you might want to tell the story of who you are, who your brand is. That's fine. Or maybe an FAQ or a page about delivery information or returns information. That's fine. People will say, well, what about SEO? You know, HubSpot is saying I should have at least 300 words per page. Yes, that is correct. If SEO is the absolute number one thing, and SEO is important, but you should always write for the user first. And people want less right now. They just want less. Twitter has ruined copy for everybody. Twitter makes us all think we need less. So I would just say write for your user first and write for SEO second. When it comes to blog articles, that's where you can implement your 300 word or more rule, because it's really relevant. So the page load speed, this is a really, really common problem. And I think it's one that people just go, oh, this is just too technical. I'll deal with it later. I don't want to have to deal with it now. I would just say, put a date in your diary and just say, right, today is the day I'm going to tackle this problem. I don't know how I'm going to tackle it, but I'm just going to figure it out. Page load speed is not only detrimental to your user experience, where people will just say, that's it, I'm done, I'm not waiting around. But it's also detrimental to your ranking in Google. So Google will always give priority to pages that, well, they'll give priority to pages depending on loads of different factors. But one of the things they'll prioritize is pages that don't take too long to load. So I would say find out what is causing your page load speed to be too long. Is it your website provider, your hosting provider? Is it the template that you're using? What is it? Solve the problem. Make sure that your page load speed is no more than 2 seconds. So the next thing that I often see is that people will update their website on their laptop and then they don't check what it looks like on mobile or on a tablet. So you're not going to have access to every single device and every single browser, but do ask your friends, ask your family, hey, will you just have a look at my website and send a screenshot of what it looks like on your phone? Because I've seen beautiful home pages with beautiful imagery, and they open it on a mobile and half of the page is missing or the image is blurry, and I show it to people and they say, oh, I never checked it on mobile. So you should also use Google Analytics to find out what devices and browsers your users are most commonly using to visit your website. If most of your users are on mobile, then you should absolutely optimize your website for their experience first and foremost. And then what I would encourage everybody to do is to make use of storytelling. So what I mean by this is using words and storytelling and basically using words to make people form a connection with your brand. So who does this really well? Well, you might have heard of the Irish jewelry maker Chuppy. So she does really, really good storytelling on her Instagram. National Geographic do storytelling really well. Land Rover have a really good blog where they put their products into these extreme environments and they talk about the story of being outside in this environment. At least they used to, so I don't know if they still do that, but they did it a few years ago and it was brilliant. So I would say, tell the story of your brand and the products. Are your customers sending you stories about how they use your product as a gift and the reaction that they got? Then put this on your social media or put it on your website. Or, you know, go out and think about like what's inspiring you and tune into what's real and what's personal and what's authentic and write it down and share it with people. So I think people now, they don't want to be sold like something that's manufactured or fake. They want to know who is behind the brand. When it's a designer or a maker, they want to know who you are and they want to know what's real. So I would say just dig deep and be vulnerable and use storytelling to really connect with your audience. One of the other things that I often see, so sometimes when I'm working with a brand, I'll just do a quick audit of their website and just make sure that, you know, what's working, what's not working. And one of the things that I always check is links. So if your links are not working, this can affect your ranking in Google search results. And it also just annoys your users if they're trying to click something and then it just doesn't go anywhere. So I would say get somebody to check every single link and every single button on your page, especially after you make changes, and fix them. So the other thing that I have seen a lot of is, actually, this is a funny one because you think that this would be a given, but sometimes we can be so wrapped up in our own product and we know what we do and we have all of the context that we forget to describe it in a way that somebody who has no idea we do, like in a way that they can understand. So this tends to be a common problem with people who are doing something that's a little bit unique or different. So if you're a jewelry designer or a potter, for example, it's very obvious what you do straight away by the imagery. If you're doing something that's a little bit different or unique, make sure that you explicitly say on your website what you're actually doing. People tend to fall down here when they start talking about, here's where I got my inspiration and this is why I do what I do, and it's all this beautiful, broad, inspirational stuff, but at nowhere does it actually say this is what I actually do. So make sure that you say that, say it on your homepage, say it on your about page. The next thing is not showing relevant products. So what I mean by relevant products, I'll give you an example. I was once looking at a website and they had emerald earrings, and when you got to the cart, like you're not even just before the cart, so you're looking at it on the product page and you're deciding to buy it. Then it turned out when I chatted to the brand owner that they had a matching necklace, and I said, it's not actually communicated on the page of the earrings that there's a matching necklace. So I would say, I suggested that they put relevant products down the bottom of the page or close to it or wherever fits, wherever works on the page, but just make sure that it's really easy for people to get complementary or matching products, because they might not be actively searching for that necklace, but when they see it, that it's part of a set or part of a series or a collection, and they say, you know what, I want that as well. So again, it's about giving people these opportunities that will encourage them to take an action that is going to generate revenue for you. And then finally, so I've got spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes as being one of the #1 things that I see a lot of. And this is one that when I bring it up with people, they're actually shocked because they'll say, really, but I proved that and I checked it and that's one thing I made sure it was perfect. So I can tell you, I've been working in content for years and years and writing for years. And if I was to write a blog article right now, there's no way I would just write it and send it, because I can't trust myself, and I don't know any copywriter in the world that could just write something and send it and trust themselves. So spelling mistakes will always crop up. I would say if you can if it's a really important piece of copy, always leave it overnight. If you're in a rush, then at least just go outside or have a cup of tea and then come back and read it in a different format. So download it as a PDF, copy and paste it into your notes app, into Google Docs, whatever it is that you use. Read it somewhere else, and then your eyes will detect the mistakes. Anytime you update your website copy, get somebody to proof it, somebody ideally who has got a good grasp of grammar and spelling. So reach out to your friends and family and just call on all the favors. So those 14 things are the things that I've seen the most across all of the websites, that I've worked on. In particular with the designers and crafters through the local enterprise board. So I've seen a lot of really strong websites that are just let down by those things, and if they just made those changes, then they would actually make a massive impact to their brand and how they present themselves. And you really do see the difference in the ones that go and apply this and that they change it, and you can see that the difference it makes to them. So once that you've done all this, your user experience is seamless, your navigation is perfect, get to the cart really quickly, I would say then move your attention to SEO. I have heard different people will give you different advice. Some people will say, look, SEO is absolutely the most important thing and you need to start from day one with SEO. As somebody who has worked on an SEO team and worked in SEO, I would say SEO is absolutely important, but if you're just one person, I would say don't be getting too caught up and too worried about SEO right now. Just make sure that your users can visit your website and buy your products and form a connection with you and like your brand first and foremost, and then go to SEO. For anybody who doesn't know what SEO is, it stands for search engine optimization. And basically it involves identifying keywords that people are searching for to find products that are like yours. So they might be searching for gold earrings with emerald heart. It could be something really specific, or it could just be gold earrings. Now, there are over 200 things that you can do to optimize your website. You're not going to be able to do them all, but one of the things that you can do that makes a big difference is to identify those keywords and make sure the keywords appear on the page. So it appears in your product description, it appears ideally in the heading. And if you have, for example, a WordPress website, you can download a plugin called Yoast, and Yoast will let you put keywords into what's called the page title, also known as the title tag. If this is getting way too technical, don't worry, don't feel overwhelmed by it. You can have a quick Google, and when you're ready to do this and say, right, top 10 things I need to do for SEO, and this will all be listed out. Again, always prioritize the user, and SEO is second. The last thing that I'd like to leave you guys with is something that I see most people don't actually do, and this translates not just to the one-man band startup. This is some of the biggest global giants that I've worked with. They forget to actually define what success is and to measure it. So what's important to you about your website? What is success? Is it traffic? Is it time on page? Is it bounce rate? Bounce rate is when somebody arrives and then they immediately, well, they not immediately leave, but they click back and because it's not relevant to them. And there's just so many metrics. If you use Google Analytics, you can go in and you can have a look. There's a wealth of metrics. You don't have to measure them all, but identify the ones that are important to your objectives and then report on them. So once a month, have a spreadsheet, go in and say, right, what was my traffic or what was this, and keep an eye on it. And anytime you make changes to your website, go in and see how those changes have affected that metric. So go and fix one thing on your website today, right now, and then do that calendar for the rest of the year and plug in when you're going to do everything else. You can't do everything all at once, especially if you're just one person. So don't feel overwhelmed, but do set aside time. And on that day, when it comes along, go and do that thing. Any questions?
Thanks for that, Jenna. That's brilliant. There's a couple of questions coming in, all right. There's one here just saying, thank you very much for your presentation. A quick question. Do you have any particular recommendations for writing for web specifically, as opposed to like press releases or collateral, etc.? Any recommendations to make web copy impactful, like sentence length, language, etc.?
That's a tough question to answer because it really does depend on the brand. So if you have a look at, say, for example, a pharmaceutical company, they might just want the language to be very, very clear, not a lot of emotion. They're heavily regulated, so they can and can't use certain words. And then you go to, for example, Color Trend, their language tends to be quite flowery, a lot of adjectives. You know, so they've defined that their tone of voice is quite, it's almost poetic. So I would say it really depends on what your brand is. So identify how you want people to feel when they read about your brand and make sure that your tone of voice matches that feeling. General sort of catch-all advice would be just less is more, keep it concise, keep it clear, avoid long sentences. And also when you're writing in a press release, you can kind of get away with 1, 2, 3 sentences per paragraph, whereas on a website you kind of have to, my rule of thumb is put in more paragraph breaks than you feel comfortable with. So when you're writing it out, if you're writing it in a Word doc and you're just putting in loads of breaks, you're going, this looks so wrong. But when you put it on a website, and especially when you look at it in mobile, that one sentence actually looks like a massive paragraph. That's what I would say.
So that probably relates to somebody else is asking, Isabel is asking, could you recommend a good website brand that I could create myself? I work as a ceramic artist.
What so the question is about creating a brand?
Recommend a good website brand that I could create myself.
I'm not sure what the question is. A website brand, is it like, is it,
maybe
if they could
expand on that a bit?
Yeah,
okay. There's another question here. As well as putting keywords into title and description meta on the website backend, how important is it to have the keywords in the page body copy?
So it's really important. So I would say put it in the first sentence and put it as close as possible to the beginning of the sentence, if it's best for the user. So always with that caveat, if it doesn't serve the user, don't do it. But I absolutely put it in the body copy. If it's quite long, you might get away with putting it in twice, but definitely don't put it in if it looks forced. And one thing I would also say, if you're going to go into the world of SEO, is to make use of what's called variants. So for example, if you're going to write about a crystal vase, if you look at the Dingle Crystal website, there's some good examples where they've not only talked about the word crystal vase, but they've also talked about words that Google associates with vases. So flowers and stem and bouquet, tableware, all of those words, make sure that they appear only, again, provided that it's natural.
Okay. And then Kayling is asking, would you have a template for KPIs that you could share?
I could, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, or Mary, you can provide with my email address. I can share something, definitely.
Okay, great. And Kenneth Green just said, thank you so much. Really enjoyed your presentation, Jenna. It is very clear and beneficial as we are in the middle of sorting out our own website, and we'll action some of your changes right now. So that's good.
Great, thank you.
Susanna Grogan is asking, what do you think about Shopify or Squarespace rather than WordPress? Which is best for e-commerce at the moment? So
that's a tough choice. So I would say, gun to my head answer, WordPress would always be my preference. However, that's provided that you're eventually going to grow into this big operation and you're going to have the resources to hire in developers, whether that's freelance or in-house. WordPress is great because it's so heavily modifiable. But if you just want something really, really easy and simple, I would imagine that Shopify is probably going to be the stronger contender. I don't have a lot of experience with Squarespace, so it wouldn't be in a best place to comment on it. But yeah, if you want it simple and straightforward, less technical, yeah, go ahead.
Just getting back to Isabel's question, I think it relates to a website builder, like a good website program that you could download to create a website.
Ah, yeah. Okay. So that's similar to the last one. So I think, again, to create a website, I think I would go with WordPress. Personally, I've always had the most success and the most flexibility. But again, if you want to keep it simple, then go with Shopify.
Okay. And then another question, what's the optimal amount of clicks for purchase? And what are the best ways to improve page loading time?
So you broke up for the start of that question.
Okay, what's the optimal amount of clicks for purchase? And what are the best ways to improve page loading time?
Okay, so I would say if you can get people anywhere that they need to get in 3 clicks or less, then that's the absolute dream. It's not always possible, but try your best to achieve that. And the next part was the ways to improve your page load speed.
To improve page loading time, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So so there's lots of different things that will affect it. So some of the things that you can control yourself are, if, for example, if you upload images that are too high resolution. So try to just do a bit of Googling actually around it, because it's really interesting. There's lots of ways you can keep your images beautiful and a high quality while keeping the resolution low enough that the page load speed is optimal. So that would be one way. Then there are more technical things that affect your page load speed. For example, wherever your website is hosted, if your hosting provider is not giving you the best package, that might be a conversation that you have to have with them to say, I'm having page load speed problems, please can you help me? And then they'll do something on their end that will improve it. There's just a long list. So I would just say focus on the images, that stuff that you can control, and then go and focus on the more technical things. And if you need to bring in a developer for a few hours just remotely, then it's worth the investment, because that will make a massive difference to people's experience.
Okay. And then Mary Burke has said, it's great to have this checklist of actionable steps. Thank you. Just getting back to WordPress again, she already has a site on WordPress, but no e-commerce on it. Is e-commerce tricky on WordPress?
So I've never actually had to use e-commerce on WordPress myself. From a technical perspective, I've definitely plugged in the copy and the images, but always somebody else set it up. So I can't comment on that side of things. I know it is possible to plug in, say, there's I think it's Shopify, but there's definitely e-commerce plugins that you can get. I think WooCommerce is one for WordPress, for example. And then you can actually just use those plugins.
Okay. And then Valerie Lee is asking just about your domain name. If you set up your website with Shopify and then you leave Shopify down the line to go with a different platform, can you take your domain name with you, or is it stuck with Shopify?
I'm not sure. Sorry, I wouldn't be in a position to answer that. But I think you guys have a webinar coming up with someone from Shopify. Is that right?
Actually, yes. I think it's the week after next. There's a webinar coming up to do with Shopify. So if you check out our website page, we have the series of webinars listed, and you'll be able to click to register for that one. It'll be more detailed about Shopify, so that could help. So there's another question here. I have a website using website builder GoDaddy due to renew. Would Shopify or Etsy be better? She has her own domain name.
Okay. So I would go with the option. I don't know which platform to recommend, but I would go whichever option lets you keep your unique URL. So I'm not sure if you use Etsy, does it have to be etsy.com/ your brand name? Maybe it isn't, but if it is that case, go whatever option just lets you have just your own unique URL.
Okay. Okay. Oh wait, no, here's another one. Ray Power is asking, would you recommend Wix.com as a template provider over WordPress? Using Wix for a few years with mixed results.
I would always recommend WordPress.
Over Wix.
Yeah, especially over Wix. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that answers the question, Ray. Does anybody else have any questions now? Because I think we've covered most of the ones that have been asked. And if any of you would like Jenna's email address, if you wanted to ask her any further questions, you can just email me and I'll send it on to you if you like. I think that's it. Most people, there's a load of thank yous here, Jenna, for your time and everything. We're all saying,
Thanks, everybody.
okay. So thank you very much, everybody. And thanks, Jenna. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Mary. Bye, everybody. Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.